Okay, so this is going to be a brief tutorial covering the SetView tab of Rhino 5. If we look at this, we have our standard toolbars, stuff that you guys are probably already familiar with. We can pan, we can orbit. If you orbit in a parallel view, it turns it into an isometric or axonometric or oblique, depending on your vocabulary. And I'll shade this. Here. Toggle that back on. So you can see what that does, and that permanently adjusts that. If you want to reset that, we can re-click this. So I'll go back, and if we right-click on that, we can turn that off. All right, we can zoom in and out. We can zoom extents. You can obviously do a zoom window, and then you can zoom on selected objects. I'm not going to go through all of this. I'll leave some of this to your imagination. You guys can read. And then if you guys look at this, we can start to set some of the views. So as you guys start to get in here and you start to customize some of these things, you can start to re-engage some of this stuff. So now it's turned into front view. We can do bottom for reflected ceiling plan. That's what we're wanting to do. Top view for if we're doing floor plans. If we look at this, I'm going to go ahead and reset this back to right. Something important that you need to pay attention to when you're doing that, you're actually resetting the construction plane. There's another tab over here that perhaps we'll go over, but essentially the C plane dictates how your snaps and how your objects are oriented as you start to draw geometry. So you need to pay attention to that, because if we come in here and I set this to a right view and then I turn it back to perspective, you can see that my construction plane has been completely changed now that it's in the vertical, set to the right view. So when I start to draw geometry, instead of drawing it in plan like is typical on perspective, it'll start to draw on that construction plane. So you can see it drawing on the right view, but if we look at this in plan, it appears to be a planar curve, so we rotate around that, and you can see how that works. So not to worry if you missed that, we can just go to hit this and turn it on to plan to reset the construction via that, and then to perspective, so you can get that adjusted back to what it originally functions as. And these are handy as you go, guys start to toggle through and set up views and want to customize your viewports. One of the really nice features in here, you can start to add named views. You can toggle the views panel here. What we can start to do is, as you guys get ready to set up for rendering, we'll double click and enlarge that. Say this is a spectacular view. This is sort of lackluster right now, but this is the view you know you're going to want as you build out your geometry. We can come up here and we can click the Save View, and we can give it a name. We'll call it 2-point. Alright, and so then we can start to viewport, toggle around. We can go in through here, and if we, on one hand, we can set this view back to perspective if we want, and we create a new. If we come out here to the new layout, we can create a new layout. We can create a new floating viewport, and then whenever we want to come back to that view when we're ready to start doing our rendering, if we right click on this, we can restore that view, and we just type 2-point, and it'll restore that view. So it's a nice handy trick. Some of the other things in here, they're not as useful. The 2-point and 1-point, you can start to toggle those projections on, but they're not as handy. And then you can also start to get in here. If you right click, you can start to essentially adjust the field of vision by setting the angle, so we can make that feel a lot flatter. If we right click again, we can make that feel very dramatic as we get into some of this stuff. And really these are some of the more typically standard. This is just giving you a different way of editing that particular feature. So I'm going to set this back to 35. Pretty standard there. Alright, and then if we just moving right along, we can place and adjust the target cameras. I found that to be essentially useless, because unless you're turning on the view of the camera, but it's just resetting the view as you go through it. You can look at surfaces. That's essentially, if you go through that, when we toggle through that, we can select this, and it looks at the surface based on the normal. Alright, we'll undo that view. So again, I don't know that that's essentially all that effective or useful. We can match the perspective projection. I haven't actually found a utility for this particular tool either. One nice thing though is you can start to orient your views again based on the construction plane. Depending on once you've set a view and you want to work in a construction plane, you can start to manipulate that. So this, without resetting the construction plane, you can start to toggle your views. So these two guys can be used in conjunction with one another to be more effective in terms of how they are engaged for your modeling. The turntable, and this is sort of hilarious, but if we go through here, it'll rotate around, give you a three-dimensional view. If you guys are wanting to set up an animation or something like that, this might be handy in terms of just giving you a feel for that. And then there's toggling on a walkabout mode. And as I don't think that this is actually useful. What this does is it reconfigures all of your navigation tools for essentially setting them up so they act more like 3D Studio Max when you're going to do some rendering. So, or doing the walkthrough mode in that. So I don't think that that's particularly useful for your navigation. And then you can, the last tool on this list tab here is the isometric, so you can start to set views consistently. So when you guys are setting up your renderings and stuff like that, you can go back to isometrics of different, in here it sets it like northwest, southwest, and all that. Okay, that's that tab.